Welcome to Theosophy and Beyond, where we explore the hidden landscapes of consciousness and the eternal quest for divine wisdom. I'm your host, Zerhocathos, and today we're venturing into sacred territory, a vision received in dream that illuminates the fundamental divide between mystical and orthodox approaches to spirituality. What I'm about to share with you came through a dream communication with Lilith, the ancient figure who represents the untamed feminine wisdom, the shadow aspect of the divine, and the keeper of mysteries that Orthodox traditions have long sought to suppress. But here's what makes this particularly fascinating. The symbols and meanings that emerged in this vision find remarkable correspondence in Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, creating synchronicities that speak to deeper truths about the nature of spiritual paths. Today we'll explore the desert of the subconscious mind, where two groups of spiritual seekers reveal the essential difference between the path of movement and the path of stagnation, between the mystical blue and the orthodox red. Picture, if you will, a vast desert, not of sand and stone, but of the subconscious mind itself. This is the primordial landscape where all spiritual seeking ultimately takes place, beneath the surface awareness of all daily lives. It is this inner wilderness that the soul must choose its path, must decide how it will approach the sacred. In this desert vision, two distinct groups of people emerged, each representing a fundamentally different approach to divine communion. The very setting is significant. The desert has always been the place of revelation, of testing, of profound spiritual transformation. From Moses receiving the commandments to Jesus facing temptation, from the desert fathers seeking enlightenment to the wandering mystics of every tradition, the desert strips away all pretense and reveals what we truly are. But this desert exists within consciousness itself, in the vast unexplored territory of the subconscious where our deepest beliefs, fears, and aspirations reside. It's here that we must confront the fundamental question: will we choose the path of rigid certainty or the path of fluid wisdom? The first group I encountered was dressed in brilliant blue, and they were dancing, constantly moving in rhythmic, flowing motion that seemed to pulse with the very heartbeat of existence itself. I was invited to join them, to don their sacred color and become part of their eternal dance. The symbolism here is profound. According to Manly P. Hall and the Secret Teachings of All Ages, blue represents the spirit of man. That divine spark within us that seeks to transcend material limitations and commune directly with the source of all being. But it's not just any blue we're talking about. The deeper, darker blues represent the subconscious itself, that mysterious realm where intuitive wisdom flows like an underground river. This is Lilith's domain, the realm of the untamed feminine wisdom that moves with lunar rhythms rather than solar commands. Lilith, in her many manifestations throughout history, represents the aspect of divine consciousness that refuses to be controlled, systematized, or reduced to doctrine. She is eternal movement, constant change, the principle that recognizes truth as a living, breathing entity rather than a fixed set of propositions. The dancing itself is crucial to understanding this path. Movement represents change, growth, evolution, the recognition that spiritual truth is not a destination but a journey. Like the moon phases that Lilith governs, the mystical path acknowledges the wisdom comes in cycles, that revelation is an ongoing process, and that what was true yesterday may need to be transformed tomorrow. The dancers were engaged in what we might call the sacred choreography of consciousness, allowing themselves to be moved by forces larger than their individual will, responding to the cosmic rhythms that pulse through all existence. This is the path of gnosis, where knowledge comes not through study alone, but through direct experience, through allowing oneself to be transformed by divine encounter. On this path, the seeker becomes the dance itself, no longer a separate entity trying to understand God, but a living expression of divine consciousness exploring itself through movement, through change, through the eternal spiral of becoming. In stark contrast stood the second group, clothed in red, that bold, obvious color that, according to Hall, represents the physical body of man, the sphere of confusion, force, in what many traditions would recognize as the hellish realms of material entanglement. These were the Orthodox adherents, and significantly, they were not dancing. They were still, fixed, unmoving. This stillness isn't the profound quiet of deep meditation. It's the rigidity of dogmatic certainty. These seekers had aligned themselves with solar consciousness, the principle of fixed, unchanging truth that burns with the same intensity day after day, year after year, century after century. There's a certain comfort in this approach, a security in knowing exactly what to believe and how to behave. The red coloration speaks to their focus on the material, the physical, the concrete. This is religion as social institution, as moral framework, as systematic theology. It deals with the visible, the measurable, the controllable. It builds cathedrals, writes creeds, establishes hierarchies. It says, this is truth, and it never changes. But the lack of movement reveals the shadow side of this approach. When spiritual truth becomes fixed doctrine, when revelation becomes frozen scripture, when the living God becomes a theological system, something vital dies. The absence of dance represents the absence of direct spiritual experience, the replacement of mystical encounter with intellectual assent. This rigidity can lead to what I experience as spiritual stagnation, a kind of living death where the soul becomes trapped in forms that once carried life but have now become empty shells. For many sincere seekers, following dogma and doctrine without the animating spirit of personal revelation becomes, as I perceived in the vision, a spiritual death sentence, lulling people to sleep before snuffing them out. Yet, and this is crucial, I was shown that I was associated briefly with this group, highlighting the fact that orthodoxy does have its usefulness, but it wasn't where I belong. This isn't a complete rejection of Orthodox traditions. They serve important functions, preserving wisdom, providing structure, offering community. But they become dangerous when they claim to be the only path, when they substitute institutional authority for direct divine encounter. What makes this vision so powerful is that it presents a choice that every serious spiritual seeker must eventually face. Will we return with the red group, finding comfort in fixed beliefs and established authorities? Or will we answer the call to join the blue dancers, accepting the uncertainty and transformation that comes with the mystical path? The invitation I received to don the blue and join the dance represents what Lilith offers to all seekers: the chance to embrace spiritual fluidity, to recognize that divine truth is too vast to be contained in any single system, to understand that the path itself is the destination. This doesn't mean abandoning all structure or wisdom from traditional sources. Notice that the synchronicity between the dream vision and Hall's teachings suggests that truth appears wherever we're ready to recognize it, whether in ancient texts or contemporary revelations, in established doctrine or personal gnosis. The desert of the subconscious mind is where all must ultimately make the choice, not just once, but continuously. Every day we decide whether to dance or stand still, whether to embrace the mystery or cling to certainty, whether to follow the fixed sun or the ever-changing moon. So how do we apply this vision to our daily spiritual practice? How do we honor both the wisdom of Orthodox traditions and the call to mystical transformation? First, we must recognize that both paths have their place in the larger ecosystem of spiritual seeking. The red group preserves important truths, maintains continuity across generations, and provides stability for those not yet ready for the uncertainties of direct revelation. We need not condemn Orthodox approaches, but we also need not be limited by them. Second, we must understand that choosing the blue path, the mystical way, requires courage. It means accepting that our understanding of truth will continue to evolve, that what we believed yesterday may be transformed by tomorrow's revelation, that we must remain eternally open to surprise, to challenge, to change. Third, we must learn to dance, literally and metaphorically. The mystical path is embodied, experiential, participatory. It's not enough to think about divine truth. We must allow ourselves to be moved by it, transformed by it, expressed through it. Finally, we must honor the source of this revelation, recognizing that wisdom comes through many channels, including dreams, visions, and encounters with archetypal figures like Lilith, who represent aspects of divine consciousness that Orthodox traditions have marginalized or suppressed. The desert vision reveals a fundamental truth about spiritual seeking. We are all called to choose between the dance of becoming and the stillness of being content with what we already know. The blue dancers represent the eternal quest for living truth, while the red stillness represents the comfort of settled belief. Both colors exist within the spectrum of human spiritual existence, but the invitation, the call that comes through figures like Lilith, is always towards movement, towards change, toward the recognition that divine truth is too vast and too alive to be captured in any final formulation. The desert of the subconscious mind awaits your choice. Will you don the blue and join the eternal dance? Will you allow yourself to be moved by forces larger than your individual understanding? Will you trust the wisdom that comes through dreams and visions as much as the wisdom preserved in ancient texts? The dance continues, and the invitation remains open. The question is not whether you're worthy to join, it's whether you're willing to let go of the need to know everything in advance and trust the movement itself to teach you what you need to learn. Thank you for joining me exploring this vision of two paths in the desert of consciousness. I encourage you to pay attention to your own dreams and inner revelations, to notice the synchronicities that confirm and expand your understanding, and to remember that the mystical path is always available to those willing to embrace the dance. Until next time, keep moving, keep changing, and remember, in the desert of the subconscious, you are both the seeker and the path itself.